I believe this. Life isn't fragile, it's relentless. But what happens when the forces that gave life its spark also become its greatest threat? How does life survive oceans that boil, skies that burn? What happens when the very earth that nurtures life tries to destroy it? And why does life always find a way back? The answers aren't simple, but one thing is certain. Every catastrophe, every extinction reshaped the world into something new. So here's the real question. What does it take for life to exist? Is it a cosmic accident or the inevitable result of chaos? 4 billion years ago, Earth was a place no living thing could call home. The sky was thick with poison, the land a wasteland of fire and ash. Oceans raged like boiling cauldrons, devouring anything in their path. It was chaos, pure, unrelenting chaos. And from that chaos came the first spark of life, not by chance, not by design, but by forces so powerful they would reshape an entire planet. Imagine a world where the sky is painted with fire, the oceans are steaming cauldrons, and the ground melts beneath your feet. This wasn't a scene from mythology or fiction. This was Earth. Billions of years ago, the planet was a canvas of destruction. Meteors, glowing red from the heat of their descent, slammed into the surface with the force of gods. Oceans evaporated into the choking air, leaving behind barren landscapes of scorched rock. Mountains didn't rise, they flowed, liquid and unforgiving. The air itself, a prison of poison, gases swirled in deadly storms, thick with carbon and sulfur. Nothing could live here, nothing should have lived here, and yet something did. Beneath oceans that boiled with rage, cracks in the Earth's crust revealed a hidden world. Towering hydrothermal vents, spewing superheated water and minerals, became the cradle of life. Here, in utter darkness, the impossible began. Molecules collided in a dance no one could see, forming the first sparks of what we now call life. No grand revelation, no miracle, just chemistry, silent, invisible, unstoppable. These tiny, fragile cells would one day reimagine this planet entirely. But in this moment, their story had only just begun. Small things don't change the world, do they? Or do they? Billions of years ago, Earth was lifeless. No plants, no animals, nothing but boiling oceans and toxic skies. But deep beneath those seas, something tiny, something invisible, was about to rewrite the rules. Single-celled organisms. Sounds boring, right? Wrong. These microscopic pioneers had a secret, a power that would change everything. Photosynthesis. Think about it. Harnessing the energy of the sun, turning light into life. But it wasn't just energy they created. They made oxygen. A poison at the time, yes, but also the foundation for every breath you take today. Let me ask you this. What if these microorganisms never figured it out? What if the ocean stayed dark, the skies stayed grey, and life never got its chance? But they did figure it out. They cleared the skies, they turned the oceans blue, and they set the stage for something far bigger, an explosion of life that would shape the Earth forever. Not bad for a bunch of tiny cells, don't you think? Let me ask you something. How many times can life stare into the abyss before it disappears forever? What if I told you Earth didn't just threaten life once, but again and again, each time more devastating than the last? Would you believe it? 4 billion years ago, the oceans, what we now call the cradle of life, turned against their own. Volcanic eruptions poisoned the waters, spilling toxic chemicals that suffocated the tiny organisms struggling to survive. Entire ecosystems vanished, not in centuries, not in decades, but in days. And if that wasn't enough, what if I told you there was a time when an asteroid, the size of a mountain, tearing through the atmosphere. It slams into the planet with such force, the ground doesn't crack, it liquefies. The impact ignites firestorms across continents, and the heat boils entire seas into clouds of steam. For centuries, the sky is black, the sun is nothing but a memory, and the world becomes a frozen wasteland. Hopeless, right? Not quite. Because here's the twist. Life didn't just survive, it evolved. Those microorganisms didn't wait for mercy. When oceans turned to poison, they thrived in volcanic vents, carving out havens in the most hostile places imaginable. When the sun vanished, they turned to chemicals for energy, creating pathways no one thought possible. And every catastrophe wasn't just a test, it was a lesson. The survivors adapted stronger than before. The losers faded into history, but the victors, they carried the torch forward. Let me ask you this, why does life refuse to give up? Because resilience wasn't an option, it was the only way forward. Every volcanic eruption, every asteroid impact, every calamity rewrote the rules of existence. Life didn't just endure, it innovated. Think about this. Without those early battles, we wouldn't be here. No forests, no oceans, no humans. It all started with a tiny cell hidden in the depths of the ocean. No trumpets, no fireworks, just a microscopic spark that refused to die. And from that spark, the world we know began to take shape. They didn't just survive, they became the foundation of everything. What if I told you the air you breathe today, the oxygen keeping you alive, was once Earth's most dangerous poison? Yes, oxygen, the gas we take for granted. It wasn't always a gift. In fact, it nearly wiped life out. Billions of years ago, tiny microorganisms began to harness sunlight, transforming it into energy through photosynthesis. But they didn't just create energy, they produced oxygen as a byproduct. At first, the oxygen dissolved into the oceans, harmless, invisible. But as time passed, it started building up in the atmosphere. And that's when the trouble began. You see, early life wasn't built for oxygen. It was toxic, deadly even. Species that had ruled Earth for millions of years began to suffocate, their cells unable to cope with this strange new gas. Entire ecosystems collapsed. The oceans, once teeming with life, became barren graveyards. They call it the Great Oxidation Event, the first mass extinction in Earth's history. It wasn't a slow decline, it was a planetary upheaval. Oxygen, the unassuming byproduct of photosynthesis, turned Earth into a battlefield. But here's the twist. For every species that perished, others found opportunity. Those that survived learned to use oxygen as fuel, unlocking new possibilities. And with this, the world began to transform. The skies, once murky and orange, cleared, revealing a brilliant blue. The ocean sparkled under the sun, now rich with oxygen, but something even more extraordinary was happening above the planet. In the upper atmosphere, this oxygen began to form a protective layer, the ozone shield. Let me ask you this, without that shield, what happens? The sun's radiation scorches the Earth. Life, in any form, becomes impossible. But because of this shield, the rules changed. Life wasn't just surviving anymore, it was expanding its reach. Plants began to colonize the land, their roots breaking apart rock and creating the first soils. Simple ecosystems formed, paving the way for forests, rivers, and the teeming diversity we know today. This wasn't evolution, it was revolution, but nothing on Earth comes without a cost. The oxygen that gave life its greatest breakthrough also created new challenges. Massive changes in the atmosphere triggered climatic shifts, reshaping the planet yet again. Every step forward came with destruction, every transformation brought chaos, but life never stopped. And it all began with something so small, so invisible it seemed insignificant. Tiny cells releasing oxygen and changing Earth forever. The question is, how much more can life change the planet before it changes us?